With me today is Jason Elate, founder and CEO of InsectFlux, the first global B2B to C platform revolutionizing the insect farming and agri-food industries. Jason, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Jason, we'll talk about insects. We're going to talk about them quite a bit and what you're doing in insect protein. But I have to say that there's something that you wrote, and I've, probably heard it before, but every time I do, I go, okay, there's a person I want to speak to. And it said the best way to predict the future is to create it. So tell me about that. Tell me about that as your mantra.
Right. Definitely a mantra of mine and probably one of the most important. So my philosophy, basically this kind of was introduced to me during an existential crisis at like 20. I'm 25. I just turned 25. And what I've discovered is that the world is made of a puzzle of answers. All of the answers that you're looking for are always in front of you. So you want to ask yourself better questions to get better answers, to make better decisions. And in that sense, to me, it's all about reverse engineering. So all of the answers are already there. What's the sequence required to be who you want to be, create what you want to create? And in that sense, rather than hoping for things. I like to go get what I think I deserve or what I believe should exist in the world. And in that sense, reverse engineer something that should probably exist in the future in this case. So my startup is literally based on that specifically. And of course, one of the things that tends to be very important at core of that is the fact that you need to work with all kind of the players, relevant players in the equation. You gotta allow yourself to do that. So in that sense, you have to go out there to make it happen, you know? So you want to create it rather than expecting someone else to build it. It's about empowering yourself first. And of course, as a founder today, I'm all about that, right? And empowering other people as well. Does that
No,
make
I
sense?
love that. And I love, oh, it does. It makes a lot of sense. And looking forward makes a lot of sense. And I think the other thing you talked about is, or alluded to, is always observing. When you talk about the answers are out there, always observe. And it's funny, there's an old quote by Henry Ford, said, if I had asked the customers what they wanted, they would have told me, a faster horse or whatever. And I said,
Right.
and I don't buy into that at all. I think if you asked the customers what they wanted, they would have said they wanted to get somebody or get somewhere faster, drier, and warmer.
Mm.
And I think that that really aligns with what you do. It's a matter of how many people are doing things one way, but aren't really that happy with it. Or there could be a better answer out there.
Right, absolutely. And one of my other mantras is essentially in a world full of copies, be an original, right? So most people tend to copy other people, and this kind of implies that you don't value what's within as much at the very least, right? So I believe we could do better in the world. And in that sense, I believe I could actually enable this and gather a team, gather everyone that actually believe in a better paradigm, right? And so in that sense, what already exists, you want to establish what already exists objectively and position yourself in regards to that. And turns out that a lot of people, surprisingly, think that everything that needs to exist already exists. And for you to think that, you're basically operating on the same mental framework that enabled to create what currently exists to
Right.
you got to be able to think outside the box, but before that you need to figure out what's the box, right? And this is the game that I've been playing and essentially what enabled me to create this new idea literally, which I find so fascinating. And of course I love to share this as much as possible to empower other people to do the same, right? I'm not different essentially.
So you talked about having this existential crisis.
Right.
Um, how did the end outcome of an existential crisis become insect protein? Because that's the first existential crisis I've heard of that ends in insect protein.
Right.
Not saying it's not a great ending, just never heard that one before.
It's a very good question. It's a very, very good question. And of course, I do have the answer. By the way, I also believe that someone that truly does what they're doing can explain exactly how, because it's all about being intentional. It's, well, by default, a startup is probably meant to fail, right? So you need to be
Hmm.
intentional just in terms of surviving at the very least. So it's very, I'm all about that by default, essentially. But yes, I was born in 2000. So in 2020, when I was 20 years old, existential crisis, COVID, literally facing the mirror, real raw process from me to me, essentially me versus me. What I've learned on this path is that it's me with me, but I had to progress essentially. So I don't know if you're familiar with something called first principles, but I believe that first principles applies to everything, and I can explain real quick in terms of myself, just to be more concise. What rules me at the deepest core? So it tends to be around an emotion. And what's my first principle is I hate to see other people suffer. It's
Hmm.
seeing other people suffer makes me suffer, literally. So I was looking for my place in the world, essentially, right? So I was wondering how could I exist? What could I maybe create? What could be my job and such? So my first principle being I hate to see other people suffer. The goal is to reduce suffering in the world, basically. Now, someone who doesn't do the first principle, kind of going within to find the answers, will probably settle for something like being a doctor, right? You could be a doctor, but turns out that there's a lot of other options in terms of what you could do to actually solve that need of yours, right? So it's all about expanding your
Hmm.
consciousness. And turns out that, as mentioned, all of the answers that you're looking for are already in front of you. So I kind of reverse engineered that as well. I wanted to attack the biggest problem possible so that I can actually help as many people as possible suffer less or maybe even thrive. Okay, how could I do that essentially? And I did a double major in politics and economics. And the perspective was you want to understand the world that you live in, the context and environment, so that I understand my role in such world, context, environment. At 20 years old, I was in university. And most people move forward in life. I'd rather actually move into the future, establish the landscape, and reverse engineer. And turns out that one of the biggest problems that we're currently seeing is the food waste crisis. And of course, we're expecting 9.5 billion people by 2050. Most of the solutions are based on producing less, consuming less. 9.5 billion people will be producing more and will definitely be consuming more. And so I started
Hmm.
researching what could we do in terms of reintroducing nutrients back into value chains, which allowed me to stumble upon this industry. And my last point would also be I did a double major in politics and economics to become a diplomat, fun fact. And I was there in summer 2023. And I didn't want to go the corporate route. I thought that I could do more, I could have a bigger impact in life. So I gave myself the summer to figure it out. Maybe by fall, it would be, it is what it is at that point. But I wanted to give it a try at least. And last week of September of 2023, so end of summer, I had the idea for my startup. Never looked back since.
So where did I understand the process now, or sorry, the timeline, but where did insect protein above all else come to you? How did that become your passion and your future?
Right. So the big question that I asked myself was, what should exist by 2030 that will be more relevant and viable by 2050? While I did my studies or my research in regards to the food waste crisis, I was looking for what currently exists, as mentioned, so you can actually position yourself objectively in regards to what exists, so you can actually transcend current systems, right? You don't want to give a kind of pill to a real problem, right? You want to have the whole surgery,
Hmm.
essentially. So you want something that's transcending as much as that. So when I did my research in terms of that, literally stumbled upon the insect industry, learned that it's already a $2.5 billion industry today, expected to reach 8 to 10 billions by 2030, which means high growth. In other words, there will be more insects, right? There's a direct correlation to having more insect feed, and turns out that this industry is looking for more insect feed. On the other hand, there's the agri-food industry, already wasting 1.2 over 1.2 billion tons of organic products every year, organic products, organic byproducts, and organic waste every year globally. It's a $1.1 trillion problem. Some people might not know this, but the not only the agri-food players globally need to get rid of these products, they also have to pay to get rid of these products in terms of logistics and distribution, but also to dump their products in landfills. Not only there's a cost attached to it, it's the cost increases every year and exponentially. So the insect industry, meaning insect farms, need these products as insect feed and they're actually paying to acquire them. We're able to reduce costs in
Mhm.
the agri-food sector while fueling the insect industry at the same time, which is why we're building both industries in parallel. So just so that you understand, we're building a B2B2C marketplace that will enable traditional farms to kitchen restaurants, hotels, food processors, grocery stores and such to sell their organic products, byproducts, and organic waste to the insect farms, but also acquire insect-based products. There are millions of species of insects, endless opportunities, over 2,000 edible insect species as well. And it turns out that over 2 billion people in the world already consume insects, right? The insects are already used as animal consumption, animal feed, I mean, and there's a market for human consumption as well. So it's truly about building an industrial solution connecting both industries, which enables circular economy of organic products and organic byproducts at scale, which addresses the food waste crisis with a new approach. Yes, go ahead.
How do you aggregate the waste in time to redistribute it?
Right, such a good question. And by the way, this is one of core it's not a problem. It's the fact that it's the paradox of being first. We have the open field in terms of what can be created. Okay, now the question then becomes, okay, how should we create it, right? So your question is like core activities, I can tell you that. And the goal here is to not only digitize this industry, meaning the insect industry, it's mainly offline. So we want to digitize it, focus on the insect industry first to actually receive the agri-food industry, which is one of the biggest industries in the world. So one of the main problems, and it turns out that it's an opportunity, is the fact that the insect industry players are already doing this offline. So working with waste management companies, working with traditional farms, all of these players offline. So they're already doing this process. We're going to digitize it, but also democratize access to it, right? To enable the industry to grow a lot more. Down the line, we also want essentially kind of a heat map of organic products, byproducts, and waste in real time and have quality grade, the volume, geolocation of all players, work with partnerships directly on the field in terms of logistics and distribution to truly map out and connect the dots, essentially, which should solve this problem. We're already in talks. Well, not in talks. This is the mission right now, literally, this month. Does that answer?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And so just tell me, I'm trying to understand now. So what specific role does InsectFlux play? Do you find and move? Do you find and tell somebody? Like what role do you play in the industry?
I guess to answer this question properly, I could tell you the four main problems that currently exist, essentially what we solve. So the first one is the fact that the insect industry is currently a $2.5 billion industry, fragmented. It's mainly offline. What I'm about to say is so important and pretty surprising to most. The demand for insect protein, meaning insects and insect protein are the same thing. The demand for insect
Mhm.
protein largely exceeds the supply. So you want to help current insect farms and those that will be coming in as it's an emerging industry supply more insects, of course. And lastly, most players are looking for, without insect feed, there are no insects, right? So most players that jump into the insect agriculture will ask themselves two main questions. The first one being, what could I produce, right, in terms of insects? And the second one, well, how do I feed them? And that's exactly where we come in. So we're starting with the B2B2C marketplace that will not only connect all players because it's much more intricate than we think. Rather than having multiple kind of players have their own website and allocating their time, basically dividing their time, not only trying to produce more to meet the demand while they're already struggling, they also try to connect with the clientele as well, all of the relevant players essentially. And our goal is to build a centralized platform that will not only connect all of the B2B side to enable better kind of industrial dynamics, but also with the consumers as well. So you're based in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Someone looking for insect-based products in Toronto could say insect-based Toronto, insect-based products Toronto. As soon as they miss out on a company providing these products, that company just missed out on an opportunity of making money. So rather
Mm.
than doing that, you could still have your website, but we're going to create a centralized marketplace, centralized platform that will enable all players to come on one platform, integrate direct messaging, profiles for all relevant players, but also the capacities, the sell agri-food products insect-based products and connect everyone in the equation. To give you a quick scoop, which is my last point as well, the second phase that we're going to launch is essentially a marketplace that will connect experts and expertise, experts and consultants to those who require them in the insect industry. So a lot of players would jump into
Mhm.
this industry if they could know what could be done, what should be avoided. Turns out that a lot of players have the answers. So someone like Ken in Toronto, being an expert in something very specific, could help someone in Venezuela, in Egypt, in Singapore. There are no borders. In that sense, we're able to enable more revenue streams for experts, but also democratizes access to the insect industry with the expertise approach in mind. So it's all about enabling, and we're building
Right.
global one-stop shop connecting both industries. I hope that's clear.
Yeah. Jason, this question may be out of scope of what you're doing or what but
Right.
you said there's millions of species of insects and about 2,000 that we use for protein. How does one tell which are the right insects for food or for waste recycling, if you will?
Right. So, the I've heard this saying once, the insects are the very first farmers of the earth. They're literally perfect at what they do, whether it's bioconversion. It turns out that there are millions of species, but the use case of each can differ, which means endless opportunities, which is what I meant. This is what I meant, essentially. So
Okay.
why I'm mentioning this is a lot of universities already have not only courses, but full department, what's called entomology, addressing specifically this. So all of the research, the data is already there. Turns out that there's, as mentioned, experts and consultants that are already there as well. All of this information is out there. So one of the mission that we have is also to centralize the information and empower. I'm all about empowering people, as mentioned, with more knowledge as well. So it turns out that
Hmm.
2,000 edible insect species, and that's of what we know or mostly use if you want. I'm sure that there are a lot that we could actually use for human consumption as well, animal feed, that we haven't tapped into yet, just because of the emerging industry factor, essentially. So all of the answers are already out there. It's about us basically bridging the gap, right, with what we're creating. And once again, not only we're already collaborating with universities, as a matter of fact, and to that, it's about giving them a voice as well, as they're already doing research. They want more eyes on the research. Okay, let's enable that as well. I think you understand where I'm going with this. So it's truly about not only enabling, we're starting with the B2B2C marketplace, but our goal is also to build a digital hub. Going on LinkedIn to figure out who's a partner in the industry works, but we could do much better essentially. So if you go on my LinkedIn, you see kind of an image of a hub that I've created. It's all about that. My whole proposal
Right.
is based on network effects. So we want all of the relevant segments are part of the equation, and let's enable all of them so that the insect industry can actually thrive and bring more to society, which includes people looking for these answers, of course.
So Jason, look, this is obviously a transformational idea. So take me back. It's 2023. You're finished a symposium. This is going to be your future. How
Right.
did you get from there to today when I believe you're either live or about to go live with the support of an investor?
So the beauty about this, and it's such a, I feel like a lot of people ask these kinds of questions just in general, because what kind of bridges the gap, right? So it's a very good question. I think one of the most important things, especially as a founder, that I've learned
Mhm.
is it's about being contrarian, right? And enabling your consciousness to accept that. So the usual example that I give is I'm sure that I'm going that direction, this direction. I'm sure, I'm sure, I'm sure, I'm sure, I'm sure, while not necessarily knowing just yet what is my next step. And these two dynamics can actually coexist in your consciousness, basically. So I remember in the very beginning, I was looking for InsectFlux, my startup, early on. Because what do you mean? I had like 30 tabs open. I love to learn, but most people don't, especially for a new thing, right? So they don't even know what they're looking for. So is there's
Mhm.
not a centralized kind of platform that could enable, people to understand this industry much faster, much, better. And to learn that, no, it didn't exist. And I probably for the first week and a half 24/7 scraped the internet. I could not believe that this did not exist. And once I understood that it didn't, it's all about, okay, this industry being an emerging industry, but already a $2.5 billion industry means that there's a lot of players that are already involved in the industry. Okay, let's map them out. And I want to talk to everyone. So last week I was at my 550 interview, 50th interview, and probably a little more since then. And turns out that when you create a new solution, when you address a real problem with a real solution, people want to help you help them. So this has enabled me to grow a lot faster in terms of knowledge, right? So not only do you want to
Mhm.
work with the relevant players of the industry, the fact that it's an emerging industry also means that people that will join this industry will also be outsiders. So my perspective as an outsider of this industry is very relevant, essentially. So I kind of um, tapped into both sides. And turns out that we've been able to grow this fast, build something new in a year because of that. So it's all about tapping into the community and the premise. And what I always tell my team, which is my last point, you don't know what you don't know. So the premise is, what should you know, right? So with that, let's say that you learn a lot and every day, which I believe is the best privilege, essentially. So this is exactly what enabled us to not only start with the raw idea. I conceptualize what I think should exist in this industry very early on, interviews with people in the field, experts, universities, early on. And the fact that they were willing to take the meetings was a great sign.
Mhm.
And from there gather the team, and it was all about reverse engineering, right? So what would strategically be my next first step if I look backwards? And I've been applying
Mhm.
this at every single step, which is why I'm now much better in terms of going this direction and not understanding just yet what is it exactly is my next step. This can exist. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So when you take that, when you take, what you were thinking, what you were looking to do, does the investor, obviously, an investor saw the benefit, but what was that process like? Because especially when it's transformational. One, I guess transformational is like a magnet for investors, but two, transformation means, boy, there's a lot of risk.
Right,
So how did that work, and how did you find somebody that's come along with you on this journey?
right. So we're part of two incubators in one in Montreal. By the way, we got rejected at first in Montreal, well, in Canada, but we got selected in Silicon Valley. I want to mention, just to be very clear, we've just received an investment recently, but we're not working with VCs just yet. Eyes are on us as we're
Mhm.
they basically no one, there ain't nobody has told me this is a bad idea. It's all about, okay, how will this exist? Is this the right team? Is this the right timing? Is the industry ready? And we've done our homework. So we believe that yes, and our goal is to launch as fast as possible. But to answer your question, this is based on the paradox of being first once again, right? So my perspective here is whether you do B2B, you do B2C, it's always individual to individual. So psychology is at core of every single interaction. In that sense, what you're attacking, no matter the business, is human nature, right? When you think moving around, you think Uber. When you think traveling, you might think Airbnb. When you think buying online, you think Amazon. I want people to, when agri-food waste comes into the equation, InsectFlux will be embedded in their mind, right? So it's about not only addressing a real problem with a real solution, solving the food waste crisis is great, but people also want to see financial incentives, right? This is the core of
Mhm.
what's seeked, if you want. So you
Right.
want to truly enable the agri-food, because I could have built something for the insect industry only, but we could actually create something much more transcending if we can actually connect the agri-food industry as well, enable them to not only reduce their costs, but maybe even see profits for what was once waste while actually fueling the insect industry at the same time. And they'll be able, for example, traditional farms to sell their agri-food waste while also using, there's a FRAS, which is a rich organic fertilizer, insect-based fertilizer, that's super rich and organic, as
Mhm.
mentioned, that they can actually reintroduce. So we're truly building a closed loop that's benefiting every single player of the equation. So this is very tangible, right? So our goal is to launch as fast as possible to actually prove how transcending this can be and actually work with people that can enable us to execute even better, right? So once again, and you always kind of hear the reverse engineering perspective because
Right,
I'm
right.
I'm always about that.
To your point, and you had mentioned, so what is your revenue model?
Right. No, good question. So the platform is free. As mentioned, I believe I mentioned, it's based on network effects. So for those who are not
Mhm.
familiar with these terms, is essentially the added value of players that jump onto the platform enhances as more players jump onto the platform. Just like Airbnb, as more people present their apartment, their spots, locations, more people will be looking for these products, so more consumers come on. As people who want to offer their location see that there are a lot of players looking for these kinds of things on the platform, they will want to, so this dynamic is
Mhm.
at core of what we're bringing. So you don't want the platform to be, you don't want to have a paywall for the platform. The platform is free. Transaction fees on the products that will be sold on the platform. So not only on the B2B, B2C side, as players on the agri-food industry can sell their agri-food products to insect farms and vice versa, the players that are looking for insect-based products as well. So you and I could want a snack, insect-based snack, or I don't know if you have pets. You could buy your pet food directly on the platform as well. Transaction fees for all of these kinds of transaction. For the marketplace that I just told you about, the experts and consultants, same thing as well. So the platform is free, transaction fees. Of course, we'll have promotion on the platform as well, as there will be merchants wanting exposure. By the way, we have a little over 140 merchants on our wait list today. And the goal will be to have the platform in regards to promotion in regards to that as well. We have seven, we have seven business models. Just to give you an idea, we nearly know where we're going in terms of that. But once again, the goal is to execute. So I present this as a tech startup for now, transaction fees as first business models plus the promotion on the platform.
Got it. Just as we wrap up today, so the year's 2050,
Mhm.
you said there'll be about 9.5 billion people in the world. What will InsectFlux be doing
A very good question,
to help
and
those people?
hopefully we'll still be in the equation, but that's the approach since the very beginning. So by that time, one of my biggest bets is essentially food waste. Food waste will be a currency.
Mhm.
It's already the case, but the constraint is not. We can still work around it. Essentially, it's not like as urgent as it will be by then for sure. And the point in terms of that is you want to reintroduce nutrients as fast and efficiently as possible. But the goal here is also to build a new industry. It's not just about reducing waste. It's about not only reducing waste with insects, but also building the marketplace for insect-based products and insects themselves, right? So our goal here will be to build the very first global one-stop shop connecting both industries. By then, if you want the real raw answer, I want InsectFlux trucks everywhere, as the agri-food industry needs to get rid of certain kinds of products. Same thing for the insect industry. We the goal is also the government will probably incentivize the creation of insect farms as well. So a lot more insect farms. Of course, they'll be looking for insect feed. They'll be looking to sell the insect-based products, so have this at scale with these kinds of solution embedded in government solutions, international organization solutions. We're already in contact with the United Nations World Food Program, Agri-Food Canada, USDA, and all of these players will be a part of they already are actually a part of the equation, and so by expanding in that sense. So enabling the agri-food players to make more money, just in general, at scale and reducing to not having waste at all. And we believe the insect industry will be at core of these kinds of activities and insect flux as well by default. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, Jason. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and all the best on this journey. And keep in touch.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. As mentioned, this is my very first time. Very, very grateful. Thank you so much.